He is Almighty God, greater than all we see, greater than all we ask. He has done great things, lifted up, He defeated the grave, brings to life. Our God is able. In His name we overcome. For the Lord our God is able. God is with us. God is on our side. He will make a way. Far above all we know. Far above all we know. He has done great things. Lifted up, He defeated the grave. Brings to life. Our God is able. In His name we overcome. For the Lord our God is God is with us. He will go before. He will never leave us. He will never leave us. God is for us. He has done it all. He will never fail us. He will never fail us. Lifted up, He defeated the grave. Brings to life. Our God is able. In His name we overcome. For the Lord our God is able. Lifted up, He defeated the grave. Brings to life. Our God is able. In His name we overcome. For the Lord our God is able. For the Lord our God is able. For the Lord our God is
Hey, welcome everybody. We're still down a little bit today. I know there's a lot of people that are still out on vacation. We're finishing up last school starts in a week or a week and 4 days or something like that. It doesn't matter. It's close. But you know, Kim and I are leaving this afternoon. We're going to take our vacation this week. You know, as you get older, one thing you got to remember to pack is your meds. I mean, you just can't forget the meds, okay? So you got that little Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday thing, and so she's got it all packed, all right? So she's got it ready to go. But hey, we got a couple of very special prayer requests that I need to make sure to mention out this morning. First of all, I forgot to announce this last week, but Cindy Hawkins, her husband Bob, that's Maddie and Wyatt's grandpa, he is having his leg amputated this Friday. So if you guys could please remember Cindy and Maddie and Wyatt as that happens. I think it's just the knee and below, but still, I mean, knowing in a week you're going to not have a body part, it's just strange. So then also continue to remember Larry. We went and visited Haley McClellan. It's not Lowe's anymore. We went and visited her yesterday in the hospital. She has to be in there for another 3 weeks at least. She's pregnant with twins, and they wanted to get to the magic week of 34, and she's at 29 or 28. And so she's in great spirits, but I could not imagine being being stuck in a hospital room for. She's been there 3 weeks and she's got 4 more weeks to go. So, but she was in good spirits yesterday. Had a good visit with her, and so just keep her and Cody in your prayers. Other than that, I don't know if anything else. Because Larry woke me up Saturday morning with a text about 5:30. Anyway, but anyway, but Larry's doing good over there yeah. And so just continue to remember those. And is there any other prayer requests, real quick, that I'm forgetting that is on somebody's heart this morning? I want to get a little bit better about this because I forget sometimes. Chris had surgery on the 14th. Oh yeah, I knew there was another. Chris has surgery. 13th, 14th. So Chris has surgery on his hernia. Kristen has scope on his knee. My dad's had that route for his cancer. Okay. Yes, ma'am. My best friend in Milwaukee, her husband has to have his leg amputated. It just a little more, but that's a lot bigger deal. When you say that, you know, they have to run a whole new way of life. The house has to be right so they can get around. Sydney's going to need a lot of prayer because that it is a very big deal. It is going to be a lot. Yeah. Do pray. Do remember to pray. Well, let's pray this morning. Just slip these up in your heart, and God, I just thank you so much for another day. God, I thank you for us being here this morning. God, nobody's here by accident this morning. There's a reason and a purpose why we're here. So, God, I just ask that you just open our hearts and open our minds and open our soul to hear what you need us to hear. Whether it's the music, whether it's the word, whether it's a handshake, a high five, or a hug, or just a word from somebody else, God. God, just let us hear from you this morning. God, I do ask that you just be with each one of these prayer requests. Father, I just pray for the ones that are going to have surgeries, the ones that are going to just go through treatments. God, I just pray for the ones that are still traveling or going to be traveling this last week before school starts back up. God, I just continue to pray and lift up everybody here that is struggling. God, for the ones in this room this morning that have something on their heart that they're battling right now. God, I just pray for that. God, I just ask that you just be with that. God, I pray for the ones that are in back with the kids this morning. God, you just bless them and just watch over and just let them teach the kids about Jesus. God, just give them verses. Father, we love you. We thank you for what you're going to do this morning. Hey, shake a hand real quick this morning. I'll tell you about it. It was wild. What? That guy. Before you now, the greatness of your renown, I've heard of the majesty and wonder of you, King of heaven.
and in humility I bow at your throne, wave after wave crashes over me, crashes over me. For you are for us, you are not against us. Champion of heaven, you make a way for all to enter And I heard you call my name. And I heard the song of love that you sing. So I will let you draw me out beyond the shore into your grace. Oh, your grace and your love is wave after wave. Crashes over me, crashes over me. For you are for us, you are not against us. Champion of heaven, you made a way for all to enter to your light. You wave after wave. Crashes over me, crashes over me. For you are for us, you are not against us. Champion of heaven, you made a way for all to enter in. You make me great. You make me great. You call me out beyond the shore into the waves. You make me great. You make me great. No fear can keep me now. The love you made away. You make me great. Your grace abounds in deepest waters. Your sovereign hand will be my guide. Where feet may fail and fear surrounds me, you never fail, and you won't start now. And I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you are mine. You are Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. And I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. My soul will rest in your embrace, for I am yours, and you are mine. Dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you, the God, that yes, you have chosen each of us, but that God, we can claim you as ours as well. That God, we can trust in you. That God, we can rely on your promises. And God, I just pray that you bless each person here. I pray that they're seeking you. I pray that they're relying on you for their path, for your will to be done in their lives. God, I just ask that you bless Pastor Sean as he brings us the message today. In your name I pray. Amen.
you guys have been here a while, that's a new bumper video. Who knows what that story's about? Anybody? Joseph. There you go, Chris. Good job. You get an A. All right. Stevie's got to buy lunch for you today. Okay. That is the story of Joseph, which is probably one of my favorite stories in the Bible. But that doesn't start. We're in Genesis 25 this morning, but that doesn't start until around chapter 37 in Genesis. Okay. So cannot wait to get to that story of Joseph. It's an incredible story. But in the meantime, we are leading up to that point. And so today, as we open it up and we start this morning, just a real recap of where we've been. 2 weeks ago, we got Isaac married to Rebekah. And then last week, we talked about Abraham and Sarah's death, where now the story up until this point, after the flood, has been really focused on Abraham. Now, Abraham is out of the way, and now all the attention turns to Isaac, the promised son, the one that took 25 years to get to Sarah and Abraham from the time it was promised until he was actually born. And then, as we look at it this morning, we're going to see a few things. Last week, we ended in verse 11 of Genesis chapter 25. And we're going to pick up in verse 12 this morning. And so as we get ready to get to this point, there's a lot of things that in this message this morning that is going to be really, if you just really stop and think about how we apply them today. But the title of the message today is Family Values. And last week we talked, something that was in the message last week was one thing that brings families together. There's really two things that bring families together almost all the time. And it's not a reunion because a lot of people skip out on family reunions. There's two things that bring families together that happen. One is marriages, and one is funerals. Those are the two main things that bring families together. And last week we saw that in the death of Abraham, we saw that Isaac and Ishmael came back together as brothers to bury their dad. And even though they didn't make up or reconcile, they still went back their separate ways because Isaac was the plan, and this is the way that God had ordained it. Ishmael was the one that was done out of God's plan through Hagar, Sarah's servant. And so they were continuing, even though they came together for a small time at the death of Abraham, they went back their separate ways. Also, another point that we brought up a week ago was Abraham, after Sarah had died, got remarried and had 6 more kids. Okay? But in all the grand scheme of things, Abraham gave all those kids gifts, but Isaac was the promised one. Isaac was the one that was going to go all the way and carry on Abraham's lineage all the way to Jesus. And so as we pick it up this morning, we pick it up in Genesis chapter 25 and verse 12. Now, this first part of this, you guys understand, I don't like because there's a lot of names in here, a lot of biblical names, okay? So if I sound like Charlie Brown's teacher at some point, just bear with me. But these are the sons of Ishmael, and these are the names of Ishmael's sons, okay? In the order of their birth. The first one is Nebiah, the firstborn of Ishmael, and Kedar, Adbil, Midsam, Misham, Dumah, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jetar, Naphish, and Kedemah. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are the names of their villages and their encampments. There were 12 princesses, there were 12 boys, according to their tribes, and these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years. He breathed his last and died, and was gathered to his people. They settled from Havilah to Shur, which is opposite of Egypt, in the direction of Assyria. He settled over against all his kinsmen. So, what does that first part of 12 through 18 mean? Well, here's what that basically means. The one thing I think is really cool about this, and I was reading some commentaries and studies on this, but his second son, Kedar, a lot of times they name their kids after like skin color or something associated with them when they're born. Well, Kedar means dark skin. Okay? So that is very well where colored people started coming from, is through the tribe of Kedar, Ishmael's second-born son. I thought that was really interesting. But what we see here, we see certain things here that as we look at this, we've got to see that each one of those men were 12 tribes, 12 princes, and all of them were against Abraham and Isaac. Okay? Once again, there's that dissension between them, and we see something very interesting in here. We're going to show it here in just a minute, up here on the overhead. But they all went east of Egypt. Now remember, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we discovered something very important back in the Old Testament when Lot and Abraham separated. Lot chose east. When Ishmael was expelled from Abraham's family, he went east. One thing about back in this time, anytime that anybody went to the east, they were going against God in the opposite way of God. And so I thought it was real interesting when you look at this, that all these people settled opposite of Egypt, which Egypt is over here, the Middle East is here, all these other countries are over here, which is east of Egypt and of Israel. Okay? So they're all going from God in this deal. So the first point today is we see that God keeps His promises. God keeps His promises. Even on the opposite side of the coin, He kept His promise that Ishmael and his descendants were not ever going to be a part of the chosen way of God, and they were always going to be opposite of Him. Okay? So, Adam, when we get to that next one, pull up this okay, here's a map. Now, I wish I had one of those little fancy little pointers, but I don't. Okay? But what you see is this is sort of modern day of where these other countries were. You see Iraq and Kuwait and all that kind of stuff, Saudi Arabia, Egypt's over here where the little northeast, southwest thing is. You see Jordan up there. Well, Israel is right at the J of Jordan. Okay? That's where Israel is at. And so you see all these tribes went on this side, which is east of Israel. Okay? And one thing I think is really cool about this map, and even in modern day today, you look at all those people that are surrounding that little country of Egypt that hate Israel. I mean, all those countries, I said that wrong. Surrounding Israel that hate Israel, and yet they cannot defeat them. That is how blessed that little country of Israel is. And that is why America had better never, ever, ever, ever turn their back on Israel, or we will fall into that like these other countries are. If these people would just believe the Bible, Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and all those other people, and quit messing with Israel because they are not going to beat them. It's not. They would just believe this book, it's not going to happen. But from way back in Genesis 25, where they all went east, that is still going on today, is the difference between good and evil, or Isaac and Ishmael. That's where it goes from here. And we see this very vividly in the way where they settled, going to the east away from God. And so let's get back in the text, beginning back in verse 19. So we see that here, these are the generation of Isaac, Abraham's son Abraham, father Isaac. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel and Araman of Paddan Aram, the sister of Laban, the Aramean, to be his wife. I cannot wait till they start saying Joe and John and all that kind of stuff with names, okay? And Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren. This is something that's really neat right here as we look at this. Remember, Sarah was barren. She couldn't bear kids with his father Abraham. Now Isaac, who is promised to carry on Abraham's name, and Abraham was going to have many descendants. Now all of a sudden, Isaac and Rebekah can't have kids. They can't have kids now, and it's like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? So in verse 21, it said, and Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. The children struggled together within her, and she said,
if it is thus, why is this happening to me? So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 people from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The older shall serve the younger. Now we're going to come back to this in just a second, because that is a very interesting and very important part of this story. So here's what's going on. Okay, so they couldn't have kids, and so Isaac prayed, and God opened up Sarah's womb, and then she had a real bad pregnancy. Those kids were just fighting like crazy. It was funny listening to Haley talk yesterday, and they're not going to know they don't know what the babies are. They don't want to find out whether it's a boy or girl. But it's baby A and baby B, or baby B and baby, I don't know how it is, okay? But, and you mamas know this. But she's in there saying how they can feel these, and just imagine having 2 of them in there at the same time. Couldn't even imagine that. Couldn't imagine one. I remember when Kim was pregnant with our kids, and she would say, look at this, and this big old lump would come out of that belly, and it's like, ugh. You know, it was gross. But that was your kid in there, and you mamas just love that. Oh, I feel a baby moving. It's gross to a guy, okay? Don't show that to your husbands, okay? It's weird. But it was neat, but they were just causing turmoil inside of her body. And so she prays, said, God, what is going on? This is a promise. What's happening? God says, well, here's the deal. Those 2 boys are going to not like each other. They're battling from the start. They're going to be 2 opposite things, and we're going to see something else that's really different in this once they're born. So here's the second point here, is husbands and wives need to pray. Husbands and wives need to pray. You need to pray. If you got something going on, pray. If you got, as a dad, as a husband, as a mom, as a wife, pray about things in your life. Bring it to your husband or bring it to your spouse and say, hey, can you pray for me about this, or whatever the case may be? Because what you see here is you see Isaac and Rebekah both pleading to the Lord. First of all, please, God, I'm supposed to be the chosen one, and I'm supposed to carry on my father's name, and I don't have kids, and it's been 20 years. And Rebekah said the same thing, but here's the point of all this. Men, and I've shared this with you guys before, men are wired to fix things, and sometimes it's hard for men to admit they can't do something. Sometimes it's hard for a man to admit, I can't do something, because we want to be fixers. We want to fix the problem. And Isaac was in this situation, just like Abraham was. Isaac was earnestly praying, God, why is Rebekah not getting pregnant yet? And guys, let me tell you guys something. This is to the men here. There are times that things come along in our life we can't fix. We can't fix it. We've just got to pray about it and have God take control of it. One of the things that I've often said, and I will always say this, and a year and a half ago, we had a tragedy happen in our life, in our family. And for the first time as a dad and as a grandpa, I had to watch a situation happen in our lives that I couldn't fix. And it hurt me because I couldn't take care of that situation. And the thing of it is as you sit there, and others have been through this situation, and when you come to that point that you can't fix what is going on around you, you've got to fall on your face and pray to God and say, God, get us through this because I can't do it no more. And men, let me tell you guys something. We got this macho, tough guy image that we're supposed to have. There are times that's got to be broken. Because there are times that you're going to understand, or you're going to go crazy if you don't understand, I can't do this on my own. And as many times as you try and fell, sometimes you got to say, God, it is now yours. Take care of it because I can't do it. And men, as long as we don't want to hold on to that pride and that arrogance of being the fixers, we will never do and know what God had intended for us to do. And so God took care of this situation that was going on in Isaac and Rebekah's life. They got pregnant, but now they're going to see what's going on. A couple of verses that goes along with this in Psalms 3 says this. Oh Lord, I have so many enemies, so many are against me. So many are saying God will never rescue him, but you, O Lord, are a shield around me. You are my glory, the one who holds my head high. I cried out to the Lord, and he answered me. From his holy mountain I lay down and slept, yet I woke up in safety. For the Lord was watching over me. I'm not afraid of 10,000 enemies who surround me on every side. Arise, O Lord, rescue me, my God. Slap all my enemies in the face. Shatter the teeth of the wicked. Victory comes from you, O Lord. May you bless your people. And then later on in Psalms, David says this in Psalms 30, verses 6 through 12. He says, when I felt secure, I said, I will never be shaken, Lord. When you favored me, you made my royal mountain stand firm. But when you hid your face, I was dismayed. To you, Lord, I call to the Lord. I cry for mercy. What is gained if I am silenced? If I go down to the pit, will the dust praise you? Will it proclaim your faithfulness? Hear, Lord, oh, be merciful to me, Lord, be my help. You turn my wailing into dancing. You remove my sackcloth and clothe me with joy, that my heart may sing your praises and not be silent. Lord my God, I will praise you forever. Those are some Psalms of David that he wrote when he was going through some hard times in his life, when he was running from Saul, and he was understanding that everybody was against him, yet he chosen me as to be the king. Just please help me to get to this point and help me to get to that point, and please be with me and protect me. You know, a couple of New Testament verses that are in there that I want to read also. Philippians 4 and verse 6 says this, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he has done. And then I found one that's not up here, but I found another one after this was done. This is one that you guys, I want you guys here too, is in John 15, verses 7 and 8. These are very familiar verses of Scripture because before that, Jesus is talking about how he is the vine, and we are the branches. And if we remain in him, we bear much fruit. But apart from me, you can do nothing. But down here in verses 7 and 8 of John chapter 15, he says this. But if you remain in me and my words remain in you, you may ask for anything you want and it will be granted. When you produce much fruit, you are my true disciples. This brings great glory to my Father. Now, what a lot of people do in that is they take that verse and they take it out of the context and they just say this. If you ask anything you want, it will be granted to you. And people forget that first part of that verse. What does the first part of that verse say? It says, but if you remain in me and my words remain in you, you can ask what you want. Now listen to me very closely on that. Okay? You can't live like the devil and pray for something and say, God, why aren't you giving it to me? But on the other side of that, on the flip side of that is, you can be the most holiest, most godliest person there is, but if something's going on in your life, God's sending you through it maybe to help you grow or whatever the case may be, it may not turn out the way you pray. It may not turn out the way you pray. It may be God's will for somebody to pass away. It may be God's will for you not to marry this person. It may be God's will for you not to get this job, whatever the case may be. Because you're thinking, man, I know that's what I want. And God, I've prayed about it. I've sought your face about it. But what did Jesus say the night before he was crucified? The hours before he was crucified. God, if it's your will, let this cup pass from me. But not my will, but yours be done. You think Jesus wanted to go to the cross? No. Humanly speaking, no, he didn't. Because he knew it was going to be painful and it was going to hurt. But spiritually, he gave himself, he said, God, whatever you want. And he went to the cross willingly because that was his Father's will. So we got to understand as we go into this, you know, I'm sure Rebecca, when God told her what was going on and told her and Isaac that, man, you got two babies inside you that aren't really going to like each other, they're warring. I bet that was a prayer she didn't want to hear. I mean, everybody wants their kids to get along. Everybody wants people to love on each other and do that kind of stuff. But here's the thing of it is, Jacob and Esau weren't going to get along. They were not going to get along. If you do a little further study Esau's name, and we see it a little bit later on, and down about verse 30, and we'll read here a little bit. But Esau was also called Edom, which is, they were also the Edomites, and that's what he was sort of that's who he was sort of his people, and they battled the Jewish nation until later on they went over to Judaism, converted to Judaism by a guy by the name of John Hyrcanus, and then he became active part of the Jewish people. So they were at war for a little bit with the Jews until they converted over to Judaism as part of Esau's of his lineage and his people. And so as we look at this, not only do we see that, but we also see something else that's happening here that we just read about, is the older will serve the younger. Back in these days, that was not how it was supposed to be. The older son always got the birthright. The oldest son always got the promise of the father, and the younger ones had to just get what was left over for what the father designated them after the fact. And so we see here, when they were born, we see something going on in verses 24 and 26. When her days to give birth were completed, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first came out red, all his body like a hairy cloak. Esau was very hairy, okay? He was like a little monkey being born, I guess. I don't know, but he just had a lot of hair on him. And so they called his name Esau, which means red. It's a Hebrew name for red. And afterward, his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. Okay, one thing about Jacob is Jacob's name was also, Jacob means deceiver or heel grabber. Okay? And so that's what they named their kids. Isaac was red and hairy, which meant Esau. And Esau was red and hairy, and that's how he got his name. And Jacob was a heel grabber or a deceiver. So we see here that it took 20 years for them to have that kid, because they got married at 40, and now 60 years old, the twins were born. Now, I have no idea about birth and how that all works, okay? But I think what would be very interesting to see is one baby holding on to another baby as they're coming out of the womb. That would be a sight to see, a sight to behold, is how he knew how to grab a hold of his brother's heel as he was coming out of the womb. Either that or he's all saying, pull me back in. I don't know what it was, but somehow they came out holding his brother's ankle. So we see here our next point is not only do we have to pray as husbands and wives or anybody, we have to learn to wait on the Lord. We have to learn to wait on God. I mean, once again, we see another long period of time between a promised child and the birth of one. You know, Abraham and Sarah had to wait 25 years. Isaac and Rebekah had to wait 20 years before that came true. And so, as we look at this, what we see here is very simply this. One thing we do see about Isaac that he didn't do, that his father did, is he didn't take it into his own hands and have a child with somebody else besides Rebekah. He didn't do that. He was patient. He waited on God. And the big question here this morning, one of the big questions you ask ourselves this morning is, can I wait on God? Okay? What is something in your life right now, and all of us have something in our life right now, that we got a goal set or we got something set that we would like to see achieved? And so as I think about that, are we patiently waiting on God to fulfill that, or are we going to take matters into our own hands and try to make it happen when it's maybe not God's timing? I don't know. But waiting is hard to do. We've got to understand that it's hard to wait. 1 John 5 and verse 14 and 15 says this. And this is the confidence that we have toward him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us in whatever we ask, we know that we have the request that we have asked of him. Now, listen to that verse again, okay? That doesn't say it's going to happen. It doesn't ever say it's going to happen. It just says, and if he knows that he hears us first of all, in verse 14, it says, according to his will. But in verse 15, it says that we know that he has the request. Doesn't say he did it. It says he has the request. He's heard the prayer. He knows the request. But then we just got to believe, okay, God, you know it. Now just give me the patience to let it happen. Verses 27 and 28 of Genesis chapter 25 says this: when the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man dwelling in the tents. And Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. So what do we see going on here? Okay, leads to our next point. Don't play favorites. Don't play favorites. But what we see here happening is Isaac and Rebekah each had their favorite. They each had their favorite. Now, that's not saying they didn't love them both, okay? But they played favorites. Esau was under Isaac's rule because Esau was an outdoorsman. Esau liked to be outdoors. Esau liked to hunt and fish and do all that kind of stuff. Where Jacob liked to hang around the house and be sort of a house guy. Okay? You know, I will say this. I enjoy outside, and I have nothing against what I'm about ready to say, but you can take fishing, hunting, and camping and all that stuff, and you can keep it. I don't want no part of it. It's just not me. I don't mind going and sitting by the lake or something like that, but I don't care. I don't see any joy of going and getting up early in the morning and freezing your rear end off, waiting to ambush a deer for hours. I don't see that. But that's me. I have nothing against it. But so if you would put me in here, I'm Jacob. I'm Jacob. There's nothing wrong with the air conditioner. There's nothing wrong with sitting inside and just chilling out a little bit, doing vacuuming. We've been married 37 years. And I've always vacuumed. Always. She does it occasionally, but I just like to vacuum. I will vacuum the house. And the thing of it is I just like to do it. That's what I like to do. Now, don't talk about getting grass out of your socks after you mow, because we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Still ain't learned how to do that yet, but I'm learning. But the thing of it is we all are different. You can take 2 or 3 kids that are raised in the same family with the same parents, and all 3 of them have a different personality. All 3 of them like different things. Any parents in here, 2 kids are alike? Anybody's kids in here are alike? No, nobody's kids are alike. And that's why you have to do different things and learn different ways. And don't show favoritism. Even though you'd like to show favoritism, you treat them the same. You know, I think about, I see people do this, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? I'm thinking, okay, it's your kid's birthday party. It's your kid's birthday party. It's and you know, they get all the presents, but I've seen people that give their other kids presents just because that kid's getting a present. Oh, no, you don't do that. You don't do that. And you just don't, mom or dad, when you're in that mood and you're just beating both of your kid one way and the other kid walks in the room, you just start beating them. That's not that. You don't start doing that either. You know, give each kid their due. Don't just include everybody in your whatever you're doing to your kids. Okay? But we're all different. We're all got different personalities. And so as you look at it and you think about it, Rebecca and Isaac had to be really careful here because they were showing favoritism very, very much so. And so we can't play favorites as parents. We can't play favorites as friends, even though you have better friends than others. You know, and guys, listen to me real close on this one. We definitely can't play favorites in church. Can't do that. Because everybody in here is just as bad as everybody else. Okay? We all have our faults. Everybody in this room has a fault. We can't point fingers at people. Now, we can help people out if somebody's really struggling with something, help them out to get out of that rut. But listen to me, do not ever think you're above anything that somebody else is going through. Because when you do that, and you get this cocky attitude that I will never let that happen to me, you are bound for destruction. We have to love each other. We cannot play favorites in church, any church. I don't care if you have friends that go to other churches. That's fine. That's great. That's cool. But we have to learn to love each other because the world is against us, and we got to come together when we're out in the world, at school, at work, wherever we're at, and we got to love on each other and understand that we need each other when we're outside the walls of our church. We have to be there for each other. Psalms 144 verse 12 says, then our sons in their youth will be like well-nurtured plants. Meaning that's how we nurture our kids. We got to understand. You know, you all that plant gardens in here, you all that plant flowers, you know that some of them have to be done differently. Some like a lot of water. Some don't like a lot of water. Some like fertilizer. Some don't. And we've got to learn, you got to understand the plant. Just like parents, you have to understand your kid. You may not be able to discipline that kid the same way you discipline that kid. And you just got to understand we're doing it to nurture our kids in the nurture and admiration of God. And then the last part of this is, this is probably the famous part of this verse of Scripture. 29 through 34 of Genesis chapter 25 says this. Once when Jacob was cooking stew, he just got watching Emerald on TV, and he trying this new recipe he just saw from the Pioneer Woman. Okay, so he's cooking stew in the kitchen. Esau came in from the field, and he was exhausted. And Esau said to Jacob, let me eat some of that red stew, for I am exhausted. And therefore his name was called Edom. Okay, that's where the Edomites come from. All right there. And then 31 says, here's where Jacob slithered in there. Jacob said, sell me your birthright now. And Esau said, I'm about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me? And Jacob said, swear to me now. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew. And he ate and drank and rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. So for a bowl of soup, Esau gave away his birthright. Which leads us into the next point, flesh versus future. Flesh versus future. This is something that is very, very, what we're really going to talk about this, try to wind this up this morning with this point. Okay? Esau gave away his future for just a moment, a little moment of time of stew. A couple of things I want to look at as we get into this, as we see this. At that moment, that prophecy came true back in verse 23, where God said, the older will serve the younger. That's where that prophecy came through, because now all of a sudden, Esau did not, even though he's the oldest, he did not have the birthright anymore. Jacob got the birthright, so they swapped in importance, not in age, but in importance. They swapped. And so therefore that came to pass there. And then one thing you want to see here, during this time, okay, Isaac knew that Jacob was going to be the one that was going to continue his lineage, because God told him in verse 23 that the older would serve the younger. So Jacob, why would Isaac still favor Esau? Why would he still favor Esau if he knew that he wasn't going to be the one that was going to carry on the name or the lineage? You know, Warren Wiersbe says this. He said Isaac would have favored Jacob because he was given the revelation that he would carry on the messianic line, but he favored physicalness over spiritualness. Isaac was looking in the future, and he was looking at the flesh. He didn't care about what was going on, because the lineage to the Messiah of Jesus went through, and how they always say it, our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's the lineage of Jesus. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So why did Isaac not favor Jacob? Because he was looking at the flesh. Hebrews 12, verses 15 and 16 says this, look after each other so that none of you fails to receive the grace of God. Watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. Make sure that no one is immoral or godless like Esau, who traded his birthright as the firstborn son for a single meal. Esau was looked on and frowned upon because of this, literally giving away his birthright for a meal. So as I look at this, and I was looking at a couple of things. I was reading Tony Evans' commentary on this part. Listen to what Tony Evans says. This is really good as we close this out this morning. And we basically talked about this same stuff. Never let physical satisfaction take precedence over spiritual priorities. Never let physical satisfaction take precedence over spiritual priorities. Whenever you do, you are despising that which is more valuable. And this one is really good. And it says, don't throw away your future for momentary pleasure. Don't give your future away for momentary pleasure. You fill in that blank with what that means, but I mean, a lot of people, getting a drug, getting a drink of something, doing something that's real stupid, having sex outside of marriage, whatever the case may be, for a momentary moment of pleasure, you're doing away with your future. Wednesday night, we were talking about marriage, and we've been talking about the last couple of Wednesday nights, staying pure and stuff like that. And one thing when I went in and was talking with the guys about is very simply this. And I said this to them. I said, that person that you're dating right now, and you guys, some of y'all heard me say this before, you may or may not marry that person. But here's the deal. Do you want your future wife, if it's not that person you're dating right now, do you want some boy doing that to your future wife that you're doing to your girlfriend right now? And then I brought it down just one step farther and I said this. Would you all want your sister's boyfriend doing that to your sister if you're doing to your girlfriend? And I said that and I put it in a perspective. Would you want that? Would you want your sister getting treated like you're treating your girlfriend? And when you think about it on those terms, when you think about it as a momentary whatever you want to put in time, that's going to affect you for the rest of your life. Are you willing to give that up? Esau did, and from all the way on through that, he was frowned upon for doing it. Listen to me as I close this morning. We're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. But I'm saying this just to let you guys know. At any time, go back to that wait on the Lord part of this. God has somebody out there for you, young people. God has somebody out there for you. You may or may not know who it is right now, but God does. And God is wanting you to save yourself for that person. He's wanting you to save yourself. He's not wanting you to give in to somebody for a momentary time of pleasure that for the rest of your life you can never get back. And that's one thing. Sex is a natural thing that we want to do, but it's in the confinement of marriage is how God designed it. And when we look at it that way, we've got to understand this. And I told the boys this too on Wednesday night. I said, listen to me. You don't ever outgrow that. Even as a guy that's been married, I have to protect my mind. I have to protect my eyes every day that I walk out of the house because Satan wants to intrigue us with sex because he knows that's how we're wired. And we got to understand that as a man, I tell Kim this, I pray every day, God, just be with everything I say and think and do. Be with my thoughts, be with my words, be with my actions. Because that's where you got to understand. At any moment, you can mess up and do that your word. Whether you're dating, you're married, it doesn't. Guys, Esau gave up his birthright for a stupid bowl of soup. You lost it. Everything we see is temporary. Everything in this world is temporary. It will end one of these days. Don't give up God's future plans for you for a temporary moment. And that doesn't even just have to be sex, okay? It can be anything. It can be anything. So this morning, where are you at? Do we wait on God? Do we pray about things? A couple of weeks ago, I asked this question to the couples out here, the married people. How long did you pray for that person before you married that person that you married? How long did you pray for that person? How long did they pray for you before you married them? Marriages became so cheap today that we just jump into it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, so good. And that's not how God intended. Guys, friendships are great. But we know this. God keeps His promises. We also know that there's a verse of Scripture that says, be sure to know your sins are upon you. You can't get by with anyone. You can pull the wool over everybody's eyes in this room, but you can't ever pull the wool over His eyes. He sees it all. He sees it all. So this morning, God, I just come to you. And I just ask people to search their hearts. God, I am so thankful that you are faithful to us. But God, on the other side of that coin, we have to be faithful to you. We have to serve you. We have to keep you at the front of everything that we do. God, we have to learn to wait upon you. We have to learn to understand where you're at, where we're at in your time frame, not ours. And God, that is so hard to do. I don't care who you are in this room. I don't care what we say in this room. Waiting on you is hard sometimes. God, I know that we all have issues in our lives. I know that everybody in here is struggling probably with something this morning. Or we're thinking about something, or something's on our heart this morning. God, I pray that we learn to turn it over to you and let you take control of it. Because, God, there's sometimes we just can't fix it. You have to fix it. And we just got to get in on your side of the coin and go along with what you have for us. God, thank you for always being there for us. God, we love you and thank you. In my heart. Let's stand. You got to do what you got to do.
Spirit of the living God, Spirit of the living God, we only wanna hear and what we see. You're changing everything. When you move all our fears. When you move us to tears. When you fall, we fall on our knees. When you fall, we fall at your feet. When you speak and when you move, when you do what only you can do, it changes us, it changes what we see and what we see. So when you come in the room, when you do what only you can do, it changes us, it changes what we see and what we see. You're changing everything.
You know, He can take the worst situation and change it for His good, as long as we wait on Him and take care of what He wants us to do. I forgot to do this, and I always keep forgetting to do this. Some of y'all know this. We are actually on YouTube. We do upload our services at the end of the deal. So it's not to stay home. If we see you're staying home and watching it, we're going to cut you off. Okay. But what it is, it's for like people that can't be here on Sundays. If you want to go to YouTube, just don't put in Harbor Church because there's like 16 million Harbor churches. Okay. But it's Harbor Church 426, and it's a red H. Okay, and click on that, and that is our YouTube. And I think we got 5 or 6 services up there on there right now. So if you ever miss a Sunday and you want to see how bad it was, you can click on it and just watch it. And go from there. Hey, real quick, just got a couple of things. We got small groups here. We got 2 small groups. One really hasn't been in a while. One just finished up. We're going to take a break. You guys are taking a break until September. We're going to do something on Sunday nights starting in September. It's a video series on Revelation. Okay? It is a pastor who's taught through it. There's a lot of stuff going on that people are talking about prophecy being fulfilled right now in the end times. And so we're going to start that on Sunday nights, beginning September, whatever it was going to be. Okay, we've delayed it 1 week. Okay, we delayed it 1 week, so that'd be the 15th. So Sunday night, September the 15th, we're going to start that series. And so don't forget about that. And we'll be doing it on Sunday nights from 6 to 7. And then we also have 3 ways to give here. There's that one right there. Sorry for that. Then we have 3 ways to give. You can give in person, give online, or give through the app. Anyway, ask you guys one thing before we leave. Just keep Kim and I in your prayers this week. We appreciate your prayers. I know some of you guys might say we pray for you during the week, but we will be traveling this week, so we just ask you guys to pray for us as we take our first vacation, week-long vacation, by ourselves in our 37 and a half years of marriage. It's the first time we've gotten a vacation by ourselves that doesn't involve youth groups, grandkids, or kids. Okay, and so we're looking forward to it. We may hate each other when we get back, but we are taking our first vacation. We're going to go see Noah's Ark, and so we're going to see what that's like. And we appreciate you guys praying for us this week. All right? Hey, have a great week, and we will see you guys later.